Hey everyone, this is Daniel Lee, and we're here with Melee Science to talk about Mew2King. But before we begin, I want to address the fans, because you guys are one of the most loyal fan bases that I've ever seen. You guys have dealt with the highs and lows, the emotions, the frustrations, the disappointments in following Mew2King. Of course, this is not a roast on him. We'll talk about him in more positive light, but I want to give you guys a round of applause because despite the difficulties of being his fan, you guys still believe in him and you guys still set the bar really high in what he is capable of doing. Now, the question here today is whether or not Mew2King can win a super major. This is a question I get very often, and I want to talk about the likelihood of him winning a super major when compared to last year. Do I think he can win one? Absolutely. I think he has the skill set, I think he has the talent, I think he knows enough about the game to do it. So I want to compare the perceptions of this year and last year. So this year in 2017 and last year in 2016. Now, shortly after Genesis 3 in 2016, there were a load of hurdles that Mew2King would have to overcome for us to really believe as analysts that he can do it. And one of the biggest issues we had last year was ice climbers. Of course, ice climbers were the one that eliminated Mew2King from Genesis 3 to make it into top 8. Nintendo wobbled him so much, and it was actually a really sad video to watch, or rather a sad set that prevented Mew2King from progressing forward. You know, we saw Mew2King versus Wobbles at Battle of the Five Gods, and so if you're a Mew2King fan, you would be worried last year if Mew2King ran into Wobbles, Chudat, Disc-Hit Boogie, or all the other wobbling ice climber players. But if we look at the past half year, I do not think that's any more an issue for Mew2King, that we don't really have to worry as much if Mew2King plays one of these top ice climbers, because if you look at his Shine run, look at his Big House run, he really hasn't lost a set to ice climbers in quite a while if you really think about it. I believe the last time he's lost to an ice climbers was back in May or June of 2016, where he played in that random Texas local and lost to Disc-Hit Boogie. But ever since, he's been winning every time. He beat Infinite Numbers, he's beaten Wobbles, he's beaten a bunch of the ice climbers before. That I think his Peach, although a lot of people call it very basic and it looks really ugly, it's serviceable and it gets the W, which is most important. So one of the biggest hurdles in ice climbers, I'm not worried about anymore if I'm a Mew2King fan. And I think that makes tremendous progress because in top 32 brackets of majors, there are so many ice climbers now rising up. We even see players like Army making it into top 32. But if they run into Mew2King, I'm not worried for him. Along with matchups, we also have certain players that have given Mew2King a hard time in the past. And particularly, we had Armada and Hungrybox. Now, I want to take it back to 2016, where before he started winning all these sets, whenever Mew2King would play Armada or Hungrybox, we'd think like Mew2King probably has anywhere from like a 5 to 20% chance of winning, depending on how optimistic you are. Hungrybox has mollywopped Mew2King in the last like couple of years, and so you would really think, well, crap, like Mew2King has to play against Hungrybox. I think he's gonna lose. Like, I don't think he has a shot at winning was the perception last year. But this year, especially against Hungrybox, Mew2King doesn't look as lost anymore. He's refined his laser game, his neutral game looks a lot better, and he's also not tilting as much. So they've been going back and forth in sets, especially if you look at the sample size of the last 3 to 4 months. Mew2King looks very confident against Hungrybox, and I don't think as long as he does not mentally tilt, I think he's okay in that matchup. It's passable. I think it's actually 50-50. Also, I have to make note that Hungrybox, has a little bit of a finger injury, but we also can't discount how much Mew2King has improved in that matchup. And of course, there's Armada. Armada, has destroyed Mew2King almost every time ever since Skatar 3 many years ago. But I think there was remarkable breakthrough for Mew2King, especially when Mew2King defeated Armada in winners at Summit last year, where he made that 3-0 dominant set win. And Armada and Mew2King will both tell you that in friendlies, that Mew2King does really well against Armada. It just doesn't translate for whatever reason in actual tournament play. And what I really like about this matchup for Mew2King and Armada is that these sets are close and competitive. And even though Armada does tend to win more than Mew2King does, Mew2King does not suffer through a character identity crisis anymore. He's not deciding, do I pick Fox, do I pick Sheik, do I pick Marth? He knows what he needs to pick, and he knows his game plan, and it's a question of whether or not he can execute that game plan. He was so close at Genesis. He took it to Game 5. Of course, Armada won the attrition battle and in turn won the set. But when we look at Mew2King against Armada and Hungrybox, these two players are very important to deal with because they are so damn consistent that in order to win a super major, which features everybody, you're more than likely gonna have to win at least 2 sets, if not 3, against Armada and Hungrybox to win the event. So that now that he's not like a 5 to 20% favorite, but more it's like 30 to 50%, that greatly increases his chances of winning a super major. And of course, outside of matchups in terms of characters and specific people, we have to highlight the mental improvements that he has made last year. Whereas last year we made that running joke, well, it's loser's bracket Mew2King. It's nowhere near comparable to him in winners. Like if he goes to loser's bracket, then he's just gonna lose. He made that loser's bracket run at UGC where he beat Mango, Leffen, and Armada and Hungrybox, which is probably the biggest run he's ever made since Big House 3, where he did the Return of the King run, although that wasn't in losers. And also, he's showing a lot more mental fortitude. And I mentioned the Hungrybox sets in particular, where Mew2King would just mentally give up. He's fighting for every stock. And of course, we've seen some relapse in that, where he kind of gave up against Mango, I feel, at Genesis. But it's a lot more consistent, and he's performing at a higher level overall in tournaments. So when you put all these variables together, it's coming together to make a complete package for a person that I believe can compete at the highest level and also win a super major. So last year I would say he would have like a 5% shot, and I think I'm not too far off if you were to look at all these variables last year. This year I really think that number increases to anywhere from like 10 to 25%, which is substantial considering the number of top competitors there are in Melee today. If you just play the law of averages and you run super major after super major, you run these brackets over and over and over again, Mew2King will eventually win one, sooner rather than later. So if you're a Mew2King fan, stay patient with the guy. He's making great improvement with Echo Fox and MVG. He's doing all the right things, and it's just gonna be a matter of time before he improves and finally wins his first big trophy this year. So, just to recap everything, Mew2King has improved his matchups with Ice Climbers in particular. He has a stronger chance of beating players like Armada and Hungrybox, 2 of his biggest demons in the past, and he's made substantial improvement in his mentality. And when you put all those variables together, of course Mew2King can win a super major, and it will only be a matter of time before you see Mew2King on a giant stage holding the trophy above his head.